How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Chaos Head. So it's funny because I asked last time, like, if it mattered at all, like if there's anybody who particularly was favorable of the green, the red, or just skipping like a delusion here. And it's really funny because I literally had one comment for each. Everyone else didn't seem to care. So I'm left to still have to make this choice here. But Rimi's been talking to us. She's just stopped us from like trying to like take a sword. Now it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of the delusions lately, but I kind of had a realization when I was loading it up the game. So Rimi like there's lots of hints that Rimi knows more about these D swords and stuff about what's going on than she's letting on. I feel like she's trying to protect us from it for some reason. I also am kind of dubious on the fact that she I there's still like oddness that kind of got brought up, and despite the fact that she's been so supportive and so helpful, there's still some weirdness with her, and so I'm a little like kind of nervous about like her as a character. Like I feel like there's so much more to her going on that like we just don't know yet. So we're gonna wait. I think my choice here, gosh darn it, I don't know. It's so hard. While I'm like making my final deliberations about this, just to say, I don't know how long this video is going to be. I've been feeling on the cusp of getting sick. There's been something going through my house for a while, and so I imagine it's going to be kind of an inevitability. I don't feel too bad, so I'm okay, but I'm like pretty much like on the cusp of like yes or noing. I really hope I'll be able to because after this, I ideally did my rap party for the Legend of Heroes Trails in Sky second chapter, but I also worry, like that's technically happening after I record this because of the way that my work schedule works out. And so I hopefully did that. If not, I'm sure it'll happen soon, but right now, at the very least, I'm at least able to keep up the regular content with the video. So let's go ahead and do that. But yeah, so it's really tough because I imagine if I do the green one, it'll be another like super romantic option that might be fun, but also YouTube might hate me for, but that's whatever. If I do the red option, that tends to be a bit more informative, perhaps, or at least give me clues about what's likely to actually happen. And if I don't do either, I actually can pay attention, which some people said that like you do miss stuff when you do a delusion. It skips over some dialogue. Now, it's not so much that you are left completely out of the loop, but you might get some clues or hints about what's going on if you don't do a delusion. And so whilst I'm fine with doing a green delusion and I'm fine with doing a red delusion, I'm also fine with doing no delusion, which is why this choice is so hard. And nobody gave me any clear cuts. I don't think it's one of those ones that really matters all that much. Some people, like, the impression was this is spice, red is going to be, like, interesting, and then not doing it I can learn some more details. But I'm kind of leaning towards the not and the red, just because we did a green last time, and I'm sure we'll do green again this episode. But either red for now or nothing for now. I think I'm going to lean towards the nothing because I kind of want to see, this is a moment where in the recent dialogue, like, it's implying that she knows more than she's saying. She's trying to hide stuff. So I'm wondering if we'll get a clue if we just wait it out and let him like work through his own like mental gymnastics and listen to her actual words here. So let's do that. As much as it pains me, because I'm really curious to see both of the delusions, we're going to move forward anyway. I'll have to come back and play it again on my own, I'm sure. But for now, flag trip! Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, my whole body froze in place. She'd clearly said that on purpose, right? Was she subtly hitting on me right now? Judging from the flow of the conversation, there's a good chance Rimi had me right where she wanted me. How should I answer? Should I just come out and say exactly what she wanted to hear? Yeah, surely nothing bad could come from that. Knock on wood, this is a very real mental conversation that I've had. I'm sure many of us have had. And the true answer is, no, you don't say what you think they want to hear. You say what you mean, what you feel. Because if you build a relationship off of what you think they want, that's going to be a problem. Holy crap, I just realized something. What? Why did I not notice this? So this this black framing that comes around when we have a delusion point, I thought it was just kind of like a random picture, but it just occurred to me, these look like silhouettes of buildings, almost as if like you were laying down in the road in a big city, and you were looking up at the sky, you'd see majority of the sky, but you see the buildings around you, like the tops of the buildings, and like a lamppost, and like that. It's that structure at the top right now with like the graded section. Like that looks like a building. That's what this must be, right? And if I were to guess, could this be the point of view of somebody who's laying in the road in the middle of like the Shibuya like Madness Square, whatever they call it, the giant crosswalk in Shibuya? Is that what that's supposed to be? Is that us like laying there staring up at the sky? Because if that is, like, what does that imply? But that must be what this is. I can't believe I never paid it much attention. I thought it was just like it is essentially just a tool to symbolize like when we're in one of these moments. But like, I didn't really think about what it might be showing us here. Yeah, because then look at this too on the left side. Maybe it's from the vision that we had at the very beginning, or this inevitable like ending we're working toward, where it's like maybe it's the center square, but it's also like the ruined square, the ruins, like the buildings that are like destroyed or falling apart. Yeah, the foundation of these delusions is leading to that big disaster that was hinted at the very beginning of the game. How did I go without even thinking about that? Holy cow. Yeah, okay. I think I'm on the right course. Now that I've taken the time to notice that, that's a good sign. All right. Sure, nothing bad can happen from that. But I wasn't sure I had the confidence to go out with a real girl. All right, let that fade away. I was at a loss about what to do, so I have to subtly examine Rimi's expression. Aww. Okay. That's fairly adorable. She's very cute. That skirt's way too short, but... Oh, actually, no. It's great. It seems too short to be functional. Looks fantastic, and if that's what you want to wear, go for it. But it's like functionally, like daily life type of thing, that seems very short. Anyway. Come on, sitting like that was cheating. And while she was clearly wearing a miniskirt, she was also holding her knees as she sat, so I can see her panties, Sakihata-san. Actually, depending on the angle, it almost looked like she was completely commando. Against my better judgment, my eyes directed themselves to the home of her thighs, the V-zone. Gosh darn it, dude. I desperately called forth for my rational self to suppress my lust. The way she was sitting, it reminded me of the cover of a classic moe eroge. Titled Free Sister. In the limited edition of the anime adaptation, there was an illustration with the heroine sitting exactly as Rimi was now, thinking one of those box-labeled free kittens. That illustration was irresistibly moe. I had even had it on my PC wallpaper for a while.
Taku. Hi.
Oh, I was actually suspicious, wasn't I? Though, to be fair, a 3D girl was hugging her knees and tilting her head like she was looking right at me. What was I supposed to do? Also, I don't know for sure, but I keep hearing that, like, if you feel like a girl might have seen you looking, observing her, like looking at her body, apparently they almost always notice. I imagine it's probably hard on the other end. I don't know. It's not like I don't have people staring at me. I definitely am not a specimen of to be, examined physically. I know that for a fact. But I always wonder, like, what must it be like if you like it must be a bitter curse, like a bittersweet curse. Like if you take care of yourself and you have like attractive looks and you wear clothes that like draw attention and accentuate your form and like you just look great. It's like that must feel good to know that you look good, but it also must be like it must be hard to know like if somebody's doing it, if it should be something you should be taking offense to or not. Because a lot of times it's just kind of an autopilot thing for guys, and I imagine girls too, but for guys, we're just not very subtle about it. It should be usually seen as a compliment. It's what the guy does with the thoughts and the ideas, and that's what matters. But the fact that, hey, if we're noticing, it's probably mostly just because we find it nice. We find you nice. But that's a little comfort if that's not what you're going for. If she kept acting so cute, I was going to die of moe overdose, even though she wasn't even 2D. In contrast to my blatantly libido-fueled thoughts, the words Rimi spoke were,
Taku は自分の未来を考えたことある?
Oh, yeah, that's very interesting.
例えば、人を含めてすべての生き物は生きてるだけで何かを傷つけてるんだよ。
Oh, that's a really interesting choice of words. Weird. Wait, all living things, including people, hurt something else just by being alive. It's funny because that's giving very strong rewrite vibes. That's kind of like the whole like motivation behind like Gaia a little bit, or at least like the core of Gaia. Like that idea that like, hey, by existing we hurt things. She looked very deep in thought. Was she trying to say something here?
わかる？
The implication I'm getting here is that it's like, what's the worth of a soul and a life if they're bringing harm to others? You know, it's that problem, like the trolley problem, right? The trolley's going down. It's going to hit 5 people who are tied to the tracks. You can't save them. You could throw a switch to deviate the cart from the track it's on to a different track, but then it would be careening into one person. And the challenge of that choice, obviously, is that obviously if you just use value of human lives, like it makes more sense to throw the switch and do the one. But then it brings it to the question of like, that's different because by not changing the scenario, like, can you really be held accountable for that? Because the situation had nothing to do with you. But by throwing the switch, you decide who lives and dies. And that means you're directly involved. And then it becomes like the stage of the problem, also the next stage of the problem that's classically done, saying, okay, it's the 5 strangers who are tied to the track who are going to die and get run over by the cart. Or you can throw the switch and deviate it. But instead, it'll take out one person. But that one person is like your mom or your best friend or your girlfriend or boyfriend. Like, does that change the formula? And what does that mean? What does that mean about the value of life? Do you value the life of someone you know far more than dozens of others whom you don't know? And I wonder if that's kind of the question she's like wrestling with, is like, if she recognizes that somehow Takumi is involved, or could his actions or inactions or whatever he's involved in right now can lead to the deaths of people, like, you could care about somebody, but at what point do you say enough's enough? And I wonder if she understands the NewGen stuff going on. I mean, unless we were having like a super delusion, she was involved in it at some point.
だからね。無理しないでいいからね。
Okay. Did she mean I didn't need to force myself to go to school? I should stop playing ESO beyond what is reasonable, stop being a total addict, and try to living a healthier lifestyle? Or was she implying that I shouldn't hold back whenever I was stuck with lust and let my instincts take hold? I don't think she meant any of that. Well, I doubted it was the last one. Fweehee. Oh, she's stretching or something. Rimi stretched as far as she could, then eagerly rose to her feet. The hem of her skirt fluttered in front of my face.
私、喉乾いてきちゃった。何か飲み物ある？
I stood up and headed toward the fridge. I peeked inside. I had some half-finished cola, but I drank directly from the bottle, so it probably wouldn't be the best idea to give it to Rimi.
ないなら買ってこようかな。コンビニって深センの駅前にあったよね。
I felt Rimi stand up behind me.
ちょっと行ってくる。
She gave me a big smile, then left without waiting for my response. Phew, being alone with a girl really did make me nervous. Especially with how Rimi sometimes did things that made my heart skip a beat, whether she was aware of it or not, though in all honesty, she probably wasn't.
Kunka.
I like how you said that. I sucked in the lingering scent of the air. I could sense the remnants of floral scent wafting through the room. This was the schmell of a girl. Rimi smell. Sniff, sniff. Gosh darn it, dude. It's like he desperately wants me to hate him. He seems to make progress, and he just goes back to this.
最低だ.
Yeah, you kinda are. I sat in my chair, dejected at how low I'd sunk, unable to do anything but cringe at my vulgar deed. I should be terrified of Shogun and Yua, but here I was soaking in complete ecstasy. While Rimi went out shopping, I went back to researching the patent and mind reading. When I reached the computer, I noticed that Grim had entered the chat room and was looking for me. Alright, so, Nerd.chan, dinner's ready. Seriously, I got new info. Come on, kid, chat with me, please. Kneading as usual, I see. Hello, Nerdheart. You there, Nerdheart? I sighed and reluctantly entered the chat room. Look, if I decided to show up. You're too slow, nerd. Thanks to that, I've entered whose eyes are those eyes mode. Damn, the fetch was whose eyes are those eyes mode. Graham obviously just wanted to use the phrase for the heck of it. Even though he knew I hated seeing that gosh darn thing, I always freak out whenever I saw it. I forgot I had to click for that. What kind of new info? NewGen, obviously. It happened, bro. The 5th case. Oh, no. Of course. I felt the usual depression I always felt whenever I heard about NewGen, but on the other hand, I was also bewildered. I was sure that Shogun and Yo would target me this time. My fate had been delayed, it seems, though I wasn't sure whether or not to be happy about that. Want to know the deets? It's Taboo homepage. A quick search should tell you everything. What time of day did it happen? Not today. They found the body last night, but the victim died the day before. This time it was seriously insane. The dead guy's brains were removed. What the fetch? Ugh. Without a warning, Grim started telling me the details of the case, and I began to panic. I was beyond done with all this gory crap. I didn't want to hear about any of it. If I got word of it, I might imagine myself getting brutally murdered in the same way. Even though I still hadn't found out how to get a D-sword. And yet, Grim continued mercilessly. The dead guy's brains were removed. They're seriously freaked out. What do you think the cause of death was? Drumroll, please. Emaciation, which means he was alive even after his brains were removed. What the fetch? That can't be possibly right. The repulsiveness of it all sent chills down my spine. I wrapped my arms around my body. I didn't want to hear anymore. Spare me, please. I'm begging you. My life already went to the crap a long time ago, so please. Apparently, he was in a state kind of like brain death. He might have even been like that for over a week, just sitting there brainless. He obviously couldn't eat or drink, so no wonder he died of emaciation. At channel named the case Numbskull, Lamafal. Nietzsche's really are epic at games. Okay, so this part's hilarious. Get this. The victim was a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist had their brain removed. Actual what the fetch levels of irony. Oh no. Oh no. It's not. It's not. It's not. Please don't be that guy. He was like the one nice person that he's known his whole life. The moment I saw the word, my heart rate skyrocketed. I might have been overthinking it, but I had to check, make certain. But I also didn't want to. He was bound for like a week, wasn't he? After hesitating on the off for a while, I eventually went to the homepage of Taboo and opened the news article reporting about Numbskull incident. It is him. Gosh darn it. Fetch me. Early morning of the 23rd, the body of... Wait, what's this? A 41-year-old Takashina Fumio was discovered in the streets of Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. The victim, Dr. Takashina, was a psychiatrist at AH Tokyo General Hospital, also found in Shibuya Ward. The TMPD have released the cause of death, stating the man died via emaciation due to severe malnutrition. As well as this, Dr. Takashina's head was found to have received a clean cut along the top of the skull and his brain was removed. The authorities claimed it's possible he survived in a state akin to brain death long after removal of his brain. And so if that were to happen, like they would have had to leave the base of the brain. So the majority of the brain they'd have to remove, but leave the base to just let you keep breathing. And then they somehow also had to prevent like infection or bleed out. So it would have to be super intentional and so skilled. I'm not sure you could intentionally do that. Like the most skilled brain surgeons would probably struggle to actually perform this surgery to make this happen. The investigation revealed that Dr. Takashina had not showed up to work ever since the 10th of this month. Ever since last month, Shibuya Ward had received immense publicity regarding the sting of grotesque murders known as the New Generation Madness. The Shibuya Police Department are investigating these murders under the possibility they have all been committed by the same culprit. The victim's name was Takashina Fumio. Dr. Takashina had been killed. He was provoking me. Shogun was blatantly provoking me. To do that, he'd killed the only doctor I could rely on just to set an example. Rimi's trying. I let out a scream. My mind was in complete disarray. I felt like I was on the brink of snapping. It's a pretty impressive, like, voice acting yell there. Yada! 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 He asked for her. I searched for Rimi. I frantically looked around the room over and over. She wasn't there. She wasn't there. She wasn't there. Why wasn't she there? Because she just went out shopping. I lay down on the ground, clutching my head. Oh, someone responded to me. How? How are you back? Shocked, I looked up to find Rimi standing right beside me, holding a convenience store bag. Rimi. She'd come back, thank goodness. Relieved, I held out my hand. Rimi crouched down and embraced my hand with both of her own. Her hands had been cool when she touched me before, but now they felt so unbelievably warm. I don't like that. It's like she's not real. Like, it really feels like she's not somehow. Using her finger, Rimi wiped my tears away with a gentle smile. How pathetic could I be? I wasn't a man at all. Showing how terrified I was, crying and screaming all in front of a girl. And yet, even while knowing how pathetic I was, she'd still said that she would stay by my side. Right now, this warmth I felt was the only thing keeping my mind from shattering. Until I got a D sword, I never wanted to let her go. Interesting. That's really weird, though. She's such a positive influence in his life right now, but it's like there's something just really, really off about her. Like, she gives me the heebie-jeebies a bit. I also feel like the game's trying really hard to make me like her, and it's kind of working, but it's making me suspicious. Whenever night fell, Miyashita Park always found itself engulfed in a peculiar air. Whose eyes are those eyes? 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 In the center of the park stood a large group of people packed together. There must have been no less than 100 of them. Most of them seemed to be in their teens, with some wearing high school uniforms, and others, particularly girls, wearing fashionable casual clothes. Within the crowd was an otaku-esque young man with glasses and a Ganguro high school girl, the latter of which was a fairly rare sight in this day and age. From an outsider's perspective, one would think they were attending some kind of event, but upon closer inspection it became clear that their behavior was anything but normal. They were all looking at the ground, their eyes unfocused and empty. Even though quite a number of people were gathered here, none of them conversed with each other. They simply stood there, frozen in place. What the fetch is happening? Every last one of them wore the same faint smile, all while murmuring something under their breaths. A phrase that their whole bodies and minds were dedicated to saying. Whose eyes are those eyes? That's one of the most horrifying things we've ever seen. What the fetch is that? The phrase seeped from the mouths of hundreds of people there. Despite their smiles, the chant rose as nothing more than flat and motionless murmur, echoing throughout the park like Buddhist sutra. Naturally, due to the bizarre state the people were under, no one else was roaming Miyashita Park. The female officer worker on her way home from work and a middle-aged woman working her dog attempted to pass through, only to find themselves terrified by the strange sight and turned back the way they came. And no one called the police? I'd be calling the police. There was only a single man who was paying close attention to that peculiar group. At first glance, it appeared he was part of the group, but in actuality, he was standing alone a few meters away from it. Considering his choice of clothing, the man would have blended in quite well in Akihabara. He wore a plain shirt, a plaid shirt, deeply worn sneakers, mittens, red bandana, and a large green rucksack. He was fairly corpulent, which made the buttons on his shirt appear as though they were about to come off. It was late into October, so while the air should have been quite cool, the man's forehead was covered in sweat. In constant war against this, the man attempted to wipe away with his towel, but no avail. He looked around restlessly, seeming unable to calm down, and yet, from the way his shoulders moved, he almost appeared as if he was laughing. Ever since that had begun, accompanying the sutra-like chants with a distinct mechanical sound, the origin of which was the man's rucksack. Another high schooler, this one wearing a blazer, entered the park. Instead of flinching at the sight of the peculiar group, she kept her eyes locked onto them as she steadily approached. The way she walked, her long black hair fluttered in the wind, gave off an aura of pure confidence and gallantry. In somewhat of contrast to this, the girl carried a half-eaten popsicle in her hand. It's interesting. So is that usually what's implied by purple hair in most of the visual novels? Is that that's supposed to be black hair? Just because it makes it appear better, but it's like wow. The group paid her no mind. They were completely absorbed in their own world, continuing to repeat the same phrase over and over again. By the way, the audio here is horrifying. I'm like dying inside. This is just the worst. Being ignored did not faze her either. She did not even raise her eyebrow. Then, as she was drawing closer to the group, she suddenly stopped. She nibbled on the popsicle while remaining thoroughly composed. As she chewed, the distinct sound of crunching escaped her mouth. Once she finished eating, the girl looked at the stick left behind by the tree, clicked her tongue, and tossed it away at her feet. Her eyes sharp as ever, her gaze slowly moved over the faces of each individual in the group.
Oi, nandayo, omae?
The man with the rucksack shouted at her, the girl now clearly beyond the limit of what he could ignore. Naturally, the girl, Aoi Sena, was well aware the man had been watching her since she'd arrived. With a mocking snort, she abruptly crossed her hands over each other, then straightened her arms in front of her. Then the air between her hands warped faintly, and the vague shape of a metal rod appeared. It looked similar to a hoe or shovel, but the shape matched neither of those descriptors. It was a razor-sharp sword with a bifurcated blade. Bifurcated, I guess. I don't know that word. After a moment, it took on a definite shape, and Sena grasped it with both hands. However, it did not end there. Immediately after, a blue light illuminated both sides of the sword Sena was holding, as well as the air directly in front of her where it was pointed. Oh! Just as before, the metal pieces appeared from that glowing blue space. There. And they took the shape. They noticeably fused with the long blade that appeared before them. Look at that. She's so cool! At last, a ring formed, one formed which another long trail of light streaked far to the right. The bifurcated blade traced the trail's trajectory as it came into being. Though one might have originally thought it to be a hoe or a shovel, it was now clear that it transformed into a gigantic sword. Sharp yet elegant, translucent yet destructive, sinister yet beautiful. With an overwhelming sense of presence, the sword settled in Sena's hand. The man with the rucksack showed no reaction. He simply stared at Sena with a malicious look on his face. With a voice quite high-pitched for a man, he had ordered Sena to leave, accompanying it with a violent gesture. His tone was thoroughly domineering, though he kept his distance from her. Sena, on the other hand, opened her mouth without showing any shift in emotion. It seemed to be more of a request for confirmation rather than an actual question. She rotated her gaze toward the man with the rucksack, locking him in place. In response, the man showed clear signs of fluster, proving a fierce contrast to what he displayed before then. Hatano, who's that? The man, too paralyzed by fear, was unable to act nor answer her question. The group of people muttering "whose eyes are those eyes" paid no attention to the exchange between the two, rather their eyes did not even register it. Sena's gaze met with the man's. The first to avert their eyes was him. Wow. What a terrible way to respond to that. Very clear you know exactly who she's referring to. Remaining silent, Sena brandished the great sword she was holding in both hands in a Kasumi no Kamane stance. Then she slowly lowered her hips, and then she cast her upper body forward. So what is that? Translated to mist stance is a type of stance utilized in sword fights. The sword is held horizontally with the hilt beside the face, the tip of the blade pointed toward the opponent. It is a stance often employed by many ancient styles of swordsmanship. The sword was held at eye level for the purpose of severing the eyes of the opponent with a single horizontal strike. It is said that the name comes from the opponent's visions going blurry, hence the word Kasumi, mist. The Kasumi no Kamana. Kasumi no Kamana. Interesting. Oh, look at that! Oh, what's happening? Turns pink. The sword emanated light once more, but unlike before, what it released was not blue light, but a light blending together a fierce purple and red. Ooh. Suddenly, a high-pitched screech resembling a woman's scream resounded. The atmosphere between her and the man was warped with anger, but not in the metaphoric manner. It was entirely physical. The very air itself vibrated, converging toward the sword Sena was holding. The red glow of the sword became inconceivably intense, to the point of dazzlement. Sena took a small breath, gritted her teeth. A booming sound roared. A shower of sparks surged, and a sonic wave eruption, one that sought to blow away the air itself. The vibration in the air then immediately subsided. The sword, however, continued to flicker with a brilliant red glow, one reminiscent of pulsing blood. Sena slowly pointed the tip of her sword directly at the man. As one would expect, the previous indifferent group started showing signs of agitation, bewilderment. They all started running away as if they'd returned to their senses. Sena paid them no mind. She simply kept her eyes locked onto the single man with the rucksack. The man, who until now had shown no clear sign of fear, began to panic. He started taking a few steps back, his face turning pale. He shook his head in denial.
待って、俺は畑野なんてやつ本当に知らないんだ。ただ指示されただけ。
So, whoever this guy is, like, he's got like a device that's like hypnotizing people or something?
誤解するなと言ったはず。
Sena did not even remotely entertain the man's supplications.
質問したのはただの挨拶代わりだ。
Alright. I might be I said it's pretty freaking cool. I'm a fan.
お前が何を答えたって、それを壊すことに変わりはない。
That's true. Whatever it is. A fierce glitter dwelt within her eyes. The man shrieked pitifully, turned on his heel, and attempted to flee. However, the group which had only just dispersed was now running away in confusion. His escape route blocked. The man, who had grown so far beyond frantic, stopped dead in his tracks. At the very moment, Sena kicked off the ground and closed the gap between her and the man's back. Whoa. Holy crap! It was... Dude, she's so cool. She like... Oh. That looks like a machine, not a person. And it's that symbol. Look at the symbol on it. It's the symbol of that the company, right? Like the company that gave us the survey that we took. It was a blow so swift, it was hard to conceptualize it had come from Sena's slender arms. The blade swept horizontally, shredding the rucksack the man was carrying. The impact blew the man away. He collapsed to the ground and curled into a ball, covering his head with his hands, having lost the will to flee. All the man could do was tremble. His groin was now sodden, the man having become so incontent out of fear. Incognito, or something. Sena walked over to the man and, without paying him any mind, gazed down at the contents of the destroyed rucksack. A collection of small sparks spurted out from within, emitting a crackling sound. There was a device inside. The shape might have originally called a mind device, called to mind a device one size larger than a modem, but after getting demolished by Sena's D-sword is now in pieces. It could be of any use anymore. The deafening mechanical sound that had been coming from within the rucksack could no longer be heard. Look at that. NOZOMI, that's it. Muttering to no one in particular, Sena's voice oozed with hatred. Oh, that was cool. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like Sena. She's pretty cool. As fall moved forward, it gradually began getting colder outside. The fact that I'd been able to go out in a short-sleeved shirt only a few days ago felt unreal. The color of the sky was also somewhat dull. Its previously bright tints seemed to be fading. If you went to a park, you'd be able to see the vibrant autumn leaves sprouting from the trees. Maybe they were sucking the color from the sky. As I looked up toward that sky, I jammed my toothbrush into my mouth. And the nice thing about my base was that I had no eyes on me. I could do anything I wanted on the roof without fear of other scrutiny. It was also fairly spacious, giving it a nice open feel. My sink was located outside of my container, which allowed me to brush my teeth outside when the weather was nice. It was pretty inconvenient when it rained, though. As I rubbed my sleepy eyes, I moved my toothbrush around my mouth and thought back to what had happened the day prior. Even after everything, Rimi had stayed in my room until late at night. She'd even held my hand until I finally calmed down, which had taken at least an hour. Although I should clarify that nothing had actually happened between us before she'd gone home. Two people of the opposite sex, and the same age no less, had been left alone in a cramped room for hours on end, and they'd never even broached that particular lewd topics. You know what's funny? It's so sad that his impression is that, like, if two people of the opposite gender are still together in a small enclosed space or in the dark for any length of time, that they just inevitably talk about lewd stuff. That's because he's been playing too many of his games, man. Gosh darn it. That's so sad to think that that's his default experience or, like, his expectation. Rather than just, like, you know, being with another human. It's just weird. If I had the skills to carry out conversations like that, I would have gained normie status a long time ago. Jeez, why was I like this? The part of me that wanted this bullcrap sexual gratification made me want to puke. Rimi was genuinely trying to help me, and it was as a friend, nothing more. She had already done a lot for me just by saying, I'll stay by your side. That alone made me feel leagues better. Hey look, he's a human in there, it turns out. Having just that pillar of support made a tremendous difference. Despite the gut-wrenching murder of Dr. Takashina, the numbskull case, I'd found myself feeling pretty stable after the night had passed. Maybe it was because my mind was preoccupied by the patent and the trial records I'd looked up yesterday. The power to project illusions into reality. Did such a thing really exist? Was I being targeted by Shogun because I had the power to do so? If I did have that power, a childhood memory resurfaced. It was the day I hadn't been able to go to the field trip, the day when I'd been the only one not involved in a certain accident. The bus had crashed and several of my classmates were injured. And Mr. Saito, my teacher, died. I remember images of those things appearing vividly in my mind back then. I'd seen them clear as day. Had it really been just foreknowledge? What if those images hadn't just been foreknowledge? What if they'd been a delusion of mine? What if I'd projected that delusion onto reality? My body threatened to start trembling, so I wrapped my arms around myself in an attempt to counter it.
だとしたら僕は
Yeah, that'd be very dangerous. A murderer.
おはよ
Is that supposed to be Rimi? Because I've heard that before. Like, it sounds so similar to something else. What is it? Oh, it is. Rimi was standing there. Despite how early in the morning it was, she was just as carefree and energetic as ever. The moment I saw her smile, the tremble began. I'd been unable to fight suddenly ceased. Yeah, see, okay, that's the thing. It's like, as his mind starts to fracture, she just happens to be here again. It's like she's like a stress response more than anything else, and that's making me think she is a delusion made manifest. And again, there's like, you gotta admit, there's something similar between her and his favorite waifu. So like, is she just a delusion manifesting as a person? And then and her actual being in reality is questionable at best? And that would also mean like his friend, like the classmate guy who's always into chicks. Maybe he's a delusion too. And that's why the two know each other. But his delusion, that delusion is like the womanizer is like the person Taku wishes he could be. And it's a manifestation of like that image of what he wishes he was like. That was odd. I used to get extremely uncomfortable whenever 3D girls were around me, but for some reason I felt at ease now that Rimi was here.
迎えに来たよ。なんでポッカーンってしてるの？
Oh, I understood now. According to the minimum attendance chart, I had to go to school today. I'd probably told Rimi that yesterday.
迎えに来てあげるって言ったよね。
Yeah, it had to be that because of Shogun. I'd been too afraid to go out on my own, and that was when Rimi told me, I'll stay by your side. She was keeping that promise.
まさか本当に来るとは思わなかったとか？ビシッ。
Oh my
残念で
gosh.
した。こう見えても私尽くすタイプなんだ。
She's got her own like catchphrase laugh. Gosh darn it, these two. They really want me to be like, oh yeah, like she's the one. I don't know though. Like there's something weird about her. Rimi winked mischievously at me. What eroge was this? I couldn't believe a girl from my class had come to pick me up. It was a scenario I would never have expected to happen in real life. If she wanted to make it genuinely top tier, she should have barged into my room, woken me up. That would have insta-killed me. While I cooked up an idiotic delusion like that, Rimi looked up at the sky. That distant look of hers again.
冬の空が色あせたように見えるのは
Yeah.
どうしてだと思う？
Well, the sun's light is composed of several colors, as well-known colors of the rainbow. For those 7 colors to reach the human eye, the first have to pass through the Earth's atmosphere. When that happens, a phenomenon called scattering occurs. To put it simply, when light collides with particles in the atmosphere, it gets refracted in several random directions. Since it gets refracted in random directions, it results in light traveling around a lot. That's what makes it easily observable to humans, for people. The colors that scattered the most are purple and blue. That's why the sky is blue. I was so smart, I impressed even myself sometimes. However, while my answer was based on scientific fact, Rimi came from emotions and romanticism.
きっと寒くてみんなが下を向いちゃうから。
Interesting, so she's interpreting that the sky looks less vibrant because most people aren't bothering to look at it.
青を望む人の数が減っちゃうの。
I felt like Rimi had already said something like that before, but when exactly?
だから寒くても上を向いて歩こ
Aw, that's pretty adorable. I quickly changed clothes and left the Kurenai conference hall building with Rimi. Going to school together, for all intents and purposes, this was some normie crap. Shogun and Yua terrified me so much, I honestly wanted them to die, and I really meant that. Fetch and kill yourself, both of you, and yet, thanks to them, I'd be able to test out the normiedom. Maybe I owed them more than I realized. I attempted to force myself to change how I felt about them, but Dr. Takashina's face resurfaced in my mind, and my good mood was instantly blown away. My doctor had been killed, and it could very well have been because of me. Shogun had killed a doctor I knew well, all to set an example or provoke me. I was hit with a wave of pure anxiety and dread. I began to gradually fall behind Rimi. Looking at her diagonally now, I glanced at the back of her head. What kind of expression could she be making? She was humming. She was humming the song from Phantasm CD I'd lent her the day prior. Her footsteps were light and bouncy. We weren't even talking, so why was she so happy? Seeing her like that, it helped alleviate my anxiety, if only a little bit. But it was probably time to be honest with myself. Why was Rimi being so nice to me? Maybe the reason lay within the memories I had with her, memories that were lost to me. When we arrived at school, I let Rimi go off on her own and made a break for the restroom. I think it's interesting. Like, if I were in that situation and Rimi was being so, like, accommodating, I would try and formulate a question like, I would want to talk to her and be like, hey, can you tell me a bit about some of your favorite, like, memories of, like when we were, like, when we would play together? And she'd be like, what? Like, don't you remember? But, like, humor me for a bit. I want to know about it from your perspective. Like, that's a way to get her to, like, talk about it, and maybe we could get a perspective on, like, at least how she saw it. And see if there's any contradictions with what we remember that's not involved. Because obviously we don't remember her, but she can describe like key events and trips and school activities that we were a part of growing up. Maybe that would help solidify like that she is real. Again, though, if she's a delusion, she would be being constructed out of our mind. And so thus it would be, okay, nope. That test doesn't work in this case. Gosh darn it. I don't know how we could figure this out. That was one of my secretly OP tactics. I felt bad since Rimi had gone out of her way to pick me up, but coming to school with a girl would make me stand out. Especially if the DQNs in my class noticed. Who knew what terrible fate would be in store for me then? That was why I had taken a short break in the restroom. It'd buy me enough time to make them think I'd come alone. And yet, my mission had ended in failure. Oh, I'm sure. Putting a nonchalant look on my face, I left the restroom and headed toward the classroom at the end of the hallway, keeping my head down all the way. As I made my way there, I spotted Ayase walking toward me. The moment our eyes met, Ayase's lips twisted into a thin smile. Aww. Hi. Ayase was a celebrity. I knew I'd been better off not talking to her when we were at school, as it would only make me stand out. Unfortunately, Ayase wasn't on the same page that I was, which she showed by choosing to stop directly in front of me. I had no choice but to follow suit.
Takumi, あれから警察はどう?
I nearly screamed, but I managed to cover my mouth with my hand. Why would you bring that up in public? I looked around in panic. The situation was already real bad. Unsurprisingly, Ayase was at the center of attention. It was rare for her to come to school at all. She was a Phantasm's vocalist, and she was a beautifully androgynous woman. That last thing was pretty much a universal opinion, meaning both guys and girls alike were immensely interested in Ayase. And they all knew there was no way she'd be talking to an otaku freak like me under normal circumstances. The gazes surrounding me were painful. I wanted to run away.
剣を探して。君はそうしなくちゃいけないのよ。
Okay. She always said the same thing every time we met. Ayase may have been on my side, but I was tired of her repeating the same bullcrap over and over again like a broken record. I wanted to get it just as much as you want me to, I just don't know how.
ヒントが欲しい。君はどうやってあれを手に入れた？
See, that's what I wanted him to ask before.
いつの間にか、そこにあった。
And there it was. Was she ever going to stop dodging the gosh darn question?
気づかなかったわ、最初は。
Oh, so she's saying the sword always existed. She just couldn't see it.
でも、ちょっとだけ見方を変えたら、わかった。
Okay.
もしかしたら、匠にももう見えているのかも。見ていないだけで。
Okay. And she's lost me now. Conversely, conversations with Ayase always wore me out. Spare me the Zen, what is that? Zen counts, please? Zen counts, please?
剣はちゃんと探してるよ。僕だって絶対手に入れたいから。
Unable to bear the piercing gazes for even a second longer, I gave Ayase a short sigh of exasperation and slipped past her into the classroom. After all that, I became even more depressed. Some of the guys, Misumi-kun included, were staring at me in astonishment. Shoot, they see me talking to Ayase. I was in deep crap now. Who knew what they were going to say to me? I could deal with it if they just made fun of me a bit, but I was worried they'd go one step further and pick an actual fight with me just because I dared to talk to Ayase. I really didn't need a demo of high school gang activity. I dropped my gaze and made my way to my seat, trying to bring the least possible amount of attention to me. I beg you, leave me alone.
Oi, oi, oi!
Oh boy. My prayers were left unanswered.
Taku, てめえいつの間に？今、岸本と話してたよな。
I had to remain silent. I couldn't allow myself to look up.
岸本が誰かとまともに会話してるとこ初めて見たぜ。一体どんな手使ったんだよ。
You'd be like, what's happening? I beg you, don't yell so loud. It's echoing throughout the entire classroom. Please, just leave me alone. I have no intention of messing around with Ayase. Even if I wanted to, I'm not worthy of her anyway. So please stop making such a big deal out of this.
なあ、タク、教えろって。
大地
Right then, Rimi interrupted him.
落ち着け。タクが困ってるでしょ。
悪い悪い。
Misumi-kun lowered his voice and clapped me lightly on the back. With the head still hanging low, I let out a small sigh. Rimi had come to save me yet again.
で、実際のところどうやったんだ？
I didn't know what I'd expected. This was the dude who only thought with the wrong head, after all.
もう、大地ってほんと節操ないよね。そのうち彼女さんに刺されるんじゃない？
Yeah, I think so. Where is she?
心配すんなって。俺こう見えても各種ケアは欠かさねえから。
何それ？
なあタク、教えろよ。岸本とはどんな感じなんだ？
Okay, no. Here's the thing. I don't believe his girlfriend's real. Like, it's very much like, oh, I think she totally goes to a different school, guys, type of vibe I'm getting from him. Asking me once again, Misumi-kun started rubbing my shoulders. While I was reluctant about it, I timidly looked up. About half the guys in the classroom were taking quick glances at me and whispering to each other. Shoot, they were still watching me. Don't look at me. Chills ran over the nape of my neck. If you were caught in a DQN's line of sight, if you were finished, they'd never let you hear the end of it. All that awaited you was pure, unrelenting hell. What should I do? Run away? Should I just skip class, go home? I couldn't do that alone. The mere thought of running into either Shogun or Yua left my legs paralyzed. Should I ask Rimi to go back home with me? She'd said before I should keep her promise, which meant she'd stay by my side at all times. So if she really had been telling the truth before, surely she'd skip class with me. Regardless, I needed to get out of the classroom as soon as possible. Suddenly, a really loud sound came from the entrance. Everyone immediately turned their gazes toward it, trying to figure out what was going on. Uh-oh. Oh! Oh, did she run into the door? Aww. It was the transfer student. Rubbing her forehead with tears in her eyes, she bowed silently to everyone around her again and again. The entire classroom had fallen silent. What the hell?
今の見たか？
見た。一人で勝手に扉に激突してたね。
That poor girl.
やっぱ梢ちゃんは可愛いな。
If the clumsy girl at archetype actually existed IRL, she certainly fit the bill. Oh, oh, she's so sad.
あ、また泣いた。大丈夫かな？すごい音してたけど。
With worry in her voice, Rimi ran up to the transfer student before anyone else could. She just couldn't help herself by getting involved. What a meddler, but I guess she was just that kind.
うお、リミに先越された。待て待て、梢ちゃんを解放するのは俺だ。
Uh-huh. Making his intentions clear, aka telling Rimi to back off, Misumi-kun ran over to the transfer student, albeit a bit late. The transfer student running into the door ended up being a blessing in disguise. The guys that had been staring at me up until now had shifted their attention toward her. GJ, transfer student. Good job. I'm guessing good job. I'd have to thank her later. But right then, I happened to overhear what a group of girls near my desk were saying.
うざ。何あれ。狙ってやってんじゃん。
Their whispers were faint, but I knew exactly what they said. So why are all the girls bullying her? Like, why are they so mad at her? I just don't get that. She's like, desperately doesn't want attention. She's so shy. And they're just like, oh, I hate her. She did it on purpose.
通常は使用されることのないいくつかの神経チャンネルが存在することをご存知ですか?
Okay, so if this evil company is messing with devices that can brainwash people and alter the way people are perceiving the world, and we're seeing the implication that delusions can become manifestations in reality, right? Like the D swords are a good example of that. It's like you delude yourself to the point where you're able to tap into an alternate dimension and bring it into the real world. Nozomi must be attempting to unlock that potential. You know, very similar to how CERN was trying to unlock time travel in as an organization. Nozomi is probably an organization that's determined to break the barriers between different realities and bring out what they want, or the attitudes or actions that they want. And so that's what that's kind of what their technology is meant to do, and it's what they're trying to utilize. Anyway, so dead spots. Yeah, dead spots, a good example one is your nose. Your eyes kind of blank it out because it's a protrusion that sticks out in your vision that would normally distract you, but it kind of blocks out because it's like you see it all the time. It doesn't really matter to you. If anything, it would be distracting. But it's funny because if you become aware of it, like you actually take time to look at your nose and notice it, you kind of like can't ignore it for a little while.
それが第二世代と何か関係があるのかね?
そういうことになります。簡単な実験をしてみましょう。これをご覧ください。
Alright.
子供騙しを聞いている暇はないぞ。
重要なことですよ。
I think this is an optical illusion thing.
この図には左側にドット、右側にリングがあります。
Right.
では、左目を手で覆って見えないようにしてください。
Okay, left eye, so you can't see through it. Alright.
そのまま右目だけで図の左側にあるドットを見つめてください。
Okay, I can see the dot.
いかがですか？ドットを見つめる目の端の方にリングも存在しますか？
I mean, yeah, I can.
いくらドットだけを見つめていても、隣にあるリングがついでに見えているのは当然だと思うがな。
Yeah.
では先生、ドットだけを見つめたまま、モニターに顔を近づけていってみてください。隣のリングはどうなりますか？
Okay, so I'm going to try and do this, but I'm going to move the microphone a bit. So there. Come on, okay. I don't know if I can get close enough to the screen to do it.
Oh, これは
I think I have seen this like phenomena before. Maybe you can do it based on your device, but if you're watching on a phone, I bet you probably can't. But it is true, like, it's because the base of the way the eye is shaped too. We have receptors along the back of the eye, but eventually there's like a point where the nerves connect to the back of our eye, which is what collects all the data. But that means it doesn't have any rods or cones, which are used to, like, you know, react to wavelengths of light, which lets us see. So there's technically blind spots that we have, just these big holes that we just can't observe through. But our brain uses logic to fill in the gap based on surrounding data to try and make it so we see like a pure picture. And you can but with like little tricks like this in the right application, you can almost like find those blind spots.
興味深いね。
右側のリングが消えた。そうですね。これは視界が狭まったからではありません。その証拠に、さらにモニターに近づくことで、リングはまた視界に現れます。
Yeah. I wonder if like maybe my screen's too big or whatever, but like it never was fully out of view. It definitely got like harder to see, so maybe that was the blind spot, but like I was always catching like part of it, and so my brain was filling in the rest of it. So yeah, maybe that's the problem for me.
これは一体どんなトリックだ?
It's not trickery, it's just physics and like and the way your body works.
いいえ、トリックの類ではありません。普段は使用されていないですが、人間が元から持っている目の機能の一つですよ。これはデッドスポットと呼ばれ、ノアによって人間の視界の中に無から有を作り出す際に使用するチャネルなのです。
Okay, that's a bit of a leap. And what's this NOAH thing? Is that a shorthand? Oh, Chaos said NOAH. Is NOAH shorthand for Nozomi? Or what? Huh. After class is finished, I found myself standing still at the school entrance. Twilight was beginning to encroach upon the sky, and a few crows were flying across it, flapping their wings without so much as a caw. I was waiting for Rimi. It was her turn to clean the classroom, so she was taking longer than usual. We hadn't promised to go home together today, but I was sure we would. So waiting for that to happen, I'd been standing there for over 15 minutes. I had no idea how the day would go this morning, but I'd managed to make it through the fairly little trouble. Misumi-kun was desperate to talk with the transfer student that he dropped the subject about me and ISA entirely. I owed it all to the transfer student, really. Oh, we see her. Speak of the devil, there she was, passing right next to me. I think I did a negative one with her last time. Let's do a positive one. With a face that looked like she was about to cry, she bowed her head to me. Despite how uncomfortable I felt, I managed to nod back. I watched as she attempted to leave through the school gate, tripping over herself along the way. Once again, I thought about how small she was. She fit the lolly archetype to a T, and on top of that, she was a clumsy girl too. Man, boy, that's a lot of negative stigma that's come up in recent months and years for that term. I didn't know her very well, but her perfect blend of personalities made me want to shout from the rooftops. She was loaded with moe traits. And yet, she didn't seem very popular with the other girls. What people valued in others really did differ between 2D and 3D, huh? Oh boy. Maybe this was a mistake. My vision suddenly went pitch black. It felt like something pushed against my eyes. What the heck? Oh. It's Rimi. No fetching way. Could this be the legendary Who Is It game? Legend stated only existed within the world of 2D, yet she's the classic line. Could it be? Could it well and truly be? I never thought I'd ever experience it in my lifetime. As right now, I'd basically won the game of life. No, hang on, calm down. There was no way I'd encountered an urban legend in the third dimension, surely. Right, what was I thinking? That wasn't a delusion, it had to be. I mean, it was an urban legend, aka something that nobody could confirm the existence of. Phew, almost had me there. I'd managed to regain my composure. If this was a delusion, I wanted to get back to reality ASAP. That way I could just get over with, like kind of like jumping to a lake or something. This way it hurt less. On the other hand, why don't I just indulge myself and let this blissful fantasy for a little while? I'm sure Rimi won't mind.
ヒントはね、名前にリがつく。
Yeah, it was pretty obvious even without the hint. I could tell the moment she'd opened her mouth. After all, I was trained at the art of working out the voice actor just by hearing the anime character talk. Man, I can't do that. People are always like telling me, it's like, oh, did you know this person was in this game too? And I was like, no. That said, I wasn't a VA otaku or anything like that. It was just a natural stage of progression for anyone who watched anime. Guess I'm not at that point yet.
あれ？わからない？第二ヒント。名前に「み」がつく。
It's the whole name, just give away the answer. What a complicated dunce. Then again, what kind of complete dunce? Then again, Rimi. Oh, you're so cute, Rimi. There was a simple reason as to why I couldn't answer. Well, I obviously knew the answer. Saying the name out loud was pretty darn embarrassing. Well, since it was a delusion, I should just play along.
Mi.
ピンポーン。
Yeah. Her hands released my face and opened my eyes. I turned around and, no surprise, found Rimi standing there.
待たしちゃってごめんね。
Wait, what? I wasn't waking up from a delusion. Usually it would just end here and I'd suddenly return to my senses. I tried pinching my cheek. No, wait, that's how you tell if you're in a dream. But dreams and delusions aren't all that different, so it's not really wrong to use that method, but ouch, my cheek hurts. What the fetch? Wait, was this actually real? Upon realizing this, I instantly became embarrassed. My face shot straight to the ground.
どうしたの？顔赤いよ。
In spite of her words, Rimi's cheeks were dyed a light scarlet. Maybe that was just because the sunset was shining down on her? Maybe?
さあ、帰ろう。
Okay. All right. So I'm not sure, but I feel like something else might happen. So maybe this is a good place for us to break. Very interesting. I'm very interested. Those, like the events with Sena in the park really caught my attention. Really got my focus right now. I want to learn more about that, and I clearly like the devices that they're using. That they are able to do a mass brainwashing. That sounds very similar to what ended up happening with the jumping on the off the building, right? Where they all kind of like suddenly went quiet and just like acted together, despite like not being emotionally interested in that. Almost like they were corralled up there, woke up realizing that they were like something horrible was happening to them, and they didn't want to do it. And then they turned the device back on, and then they jumped. And like the people in the park, it almost was like they were experimenting again to see like to get a big group. And the guy who had the device was being really creepy about it too. Like I didn't like that at all. So what's that company doing? And like why are they just like randomly testing it on random kids, right? Like that's the weirdest part. And then like it's just all so strange. Like now like they're clearly the bad guys. Like I thought they were just like maybe a branch of investigating government, but no, they're clearly wanting to manipulate essentially time and space to bring about some kind of reality. So that's going to be really interesting to see how we end up interacting with them, because I feel like it's going to be an inevitability when we confront them. And I wonder if the other people who have these swords are also confronting them, or if Sena's the only one who's aggressively going out of her way to try and protect people, which is why she does her patrols, and the others don't seem that interested in doing so. It's interesting. I'm excited to learn more. I'm excited too. Like, again, I like Rimi a lot. I feel like the game really wants me to like Rimi a lot. And so it's kind of working, but I'm also skeptical of that, because it's like, why? Why push it so hard? Why is she such a focus all the time? So interesting. Really, really interesting. But I guess we'll have to get to all that later. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I certainly enjoyed recording it. This was a really fun one. I'm pretty curious to see what direction this is going to go, and kind of what the end game is going to be with all of this. I also don't know for sure. I guess someone said that in the game originally came out, it didn't have other routes, but now it does. So I don't know how that's supposed to play, and I don't know if there's any point in me, like, I don't know if I can try for routes yet. Obviously, I feel like it's just introducing all the characters so far. But like, at what point are there going to be choices? Again, it's probably going to herald back to Steins Gate, where there weren't any choices in Steins Gate until we really got to the point where like we had a critical story moments where it's like, okay, this is where choices are made. So I wonder if it's going to follow that model, which I wouldn't mind at all. But we'll have to see. I imagine it won't be something I can miss easily. So that'll be fun. But regardless of that, I'm very excited. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you have a good start to your weekend and that we can join together again next week. It's always fun to hear your comments and to see what you think as these videos come out. And I just hope that you keep coming back for more. And if you have more time on your hands, there's plenty of good stuff to watch on the channel's backlog. There's a lot of fun things. We recently hit 3,000 subscribers. Now that number fluctuates, so there's a good chance it'll go up and down for a little while there. But like, just for me, 3,000 is a pretty significant milestone. That's huge. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your support. And I just want to keep the channel moving. I want to find more people who find this stuff interesting and can engage with it. I don't care if it's like 3,000 or 3 million or 30 million. It's like, as long as we're building a community of people who just enjoy sharing these stories together, that's all that matters to me. It doesn't matter how big it gets, but it's always fun to see like significant mile markers get crossed and, you know, just to hope for a brighter, more successful future to come. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. And I hope that we continue to enjoy it together. But I've said that like 3 times now, so I better get going. Thank you so much. Until next video, watch me. Ever see me next, I'll see you there.